Hello, beautiful souls. Happy Sunday today. Hey, I want to do a little exploration with all of us today. And it comes from, I'm from Denmark, so I grew up in Denmark most of my childhood. And in all of Scandinavia, that's Denmark, Sweden, Norway, Finland, Iceland, maybe, um, Greenland, who knows? Anyway, we were all being imprinted with something called the Jante Law, the law of Jante, I think is how they pronounce it in English. Now, this is not a real law like you have to abide by, but as far as I remember, it was a priest or somebody, I may have it wrong, but it was somebody who wrote this to create some kind of a code of conduct. And I think it was meant to help you uh, get rid of your ego, how we like to get rid of things, right, instead of integrating them. And so I know everybody in Denmark, when I lived there, we were all under that spell. And the law goes something like this: don't think anybody likes you. Don't think you're better than anybody else. Don't think you are as good as we are. And so I think there's 10 laws like that. And of course, it's a bunch of nonsense, but maybe the guy who created that, I think it was in a book he wrote or something. I think he probably had, good intentions to help people surrender their ego and surrender to the divine instead. And also, it was also in those times, instead of standing out, being the tall puppy, we were all meant to be the underdog. So we were all the same and nobody was better than anybody else. And you had to stay under that cover. And even though you may not be Danish, you may very well relate to that because it's kind of everywhere. But I remember when I came to America in what was that, the late 80s, I was very aware how that Jente law or law of Jente really impacted me. So the reason I want to talk about that today and explore that a little bit with you is that that identity is something we all have taken on. And if you ask yourself the question, people sometimes say like, who the hell do you think you are? Who do you think you are? And if that goes back to the law of Yente, it's like, well, you shouldn't believe you're anything special. Who do you think you are? And that question, I want to use that today. I want to play with that question and ask you, who do you think you are? Not necessarily from a point of like, you know, but more like, well, who do you think you are? Who do you believe that you are? What identity have you taken on that makes you act, speak, do things in life, conduct based on that belief of who you think you are? So this is not a mental mind question at all. This is more like, this is kind of turning back inside and ask the question with a curiosity. Like, well, who do I think I am? And then if you close your eyes, if you want to, you just start sensing into what you find in there. What or who do you find inside when you go in with that question? I'm not right now relating to the true who am I, but this is who do I believe myself to be? Who do I think I am? So if we don't use that question as a, superior thing, to put you down, but more like an open-ended question where you go in and to find out, well, who do I think I am? That's a great question, because most of us live our lives never asking that question, just having some kind of a sense of, well, this is who I am. And it's like that comes with a whole world view, that comes with sensations and beliefs and feelings and emotions and traumas and fears and all kind of things, body images, problems in the body, poverty consciousness. I mean, it's endless. And if we just spread that endlessness out like that and just start looking like, oh, yeah, I believe myself to be that, and I think I'm that. And then you start, in one way, collecting all the beliefs and feelings and views and values that you live day by day without ever questioning it. And that's why so many, all of us basically, until we start waking up, all of us live as if we are that little character that is depressed, that's angry, that doesn't have enough money, that has a stomach ache, that has strong muscles, that has a limp in its foot, that believes that the world is out to get you, that hopes that things will get better, that is unhappy in its job. I mean, it's endless, right? That feels really good about themselves because they're strong, or has a big sense of empowerment because they're very successful. So you can see it really is endless. And I want to just today, if you're up for that game, just check in with yourself and find out who lives in there, fed by your attention every single day. Who are you in the morning when you wake up? What is the first thing that you identify yourself with? Is it like, oh my God, I hate my life? Or it's like, yeah, I'm gonna do sun gazing this morning. All of that is something that we have taken on as if that is who we are. So the question, who do you think you are? Who do you believe yourself to be? I mean, this is a huge deep dive, because when we start on our awakening journey, these are all the parts that need to be met because they have never been met consciously before. And that's why we just unconsciously live out as that, as if that is true. Our personality may be in a certain way, and because that personality is maybe a type A or whatever, it's out there doing this every day, never questioning if that's really who they are. Totally run by unconscious beliefs, suggestions, hypnotic suggestions. To me, I like to call it all the matrix, where there's these suggestions that are just being programmed into us without ever questioning them. And I think today is maybe a really good day to question that. Instead of just automatically, do things and say things and maybe get upset without really pausing first, or coming with your opinion and believing that you know what's true. This is all based on this image, this belief we have as if that is who we are. But when we peel it all apart and really stretch it out on the table and take a good look at it, and like I say, if you want to play that game, play along with me also after this video today, and just question yourself, like, is that really who I am? Am I really a type A person? Well, it feels like that in every cell of my body, but why is that? And what is that? You see, we don't question anything these days. Well, many people do, more and more do, not just the inner, but the outer. It's the whole thing, questioning everything. Why do I believe that that is true? Why do I read these documents? And why do I give my power to these people? This is all the unconscious, our unconscious, separate sense of self. And I have talked about this separate sense of self a lot. It is, of course, also my own journey. And that's why a lot of times when I share things here, it's because I'm always doing my own investigation and deepening and letting go and softening and opening and all that stuff. So if you take a moment and just feel into, it's like there is a being, an energetic expression. And right now I'm not talking about the I am, the presence of who we truly are, but all the things that are surrounding that and that we can become aware of. So if I tune into myself and just start feeling, well, what is this Pernilla-ness? What is this Pernilla character? And you can do that with your own name and your own identity. And just like, what is that? You can start feeling things in your body. That might be sensations, contractions, pain, love, um, kind of a sense of holding back, hiding. I can't show that to anybody. So you see, when we just do this little exploration, you can learn a lot about yourself. Like, oh, I believe I'm somebody who's not allowed to show this part of myself, this part that feels unspiritual. So then there is an identity, a separate sense of self believing that you should be spiritual. And, a separate sense of self can never be spiritual because the reason it's separate is because it's cut itself off from its true divine spirituality, right? So there's all these little characters and expressions and identities and characters and whatnot that we constantly engage with all day long, probably also all night long, without even knowing it. And most of the time, we're trying to hide it or improve it or find somebody who will love it because it's all so unconscious. So, what do we do with that, right? When you start finding these parts in yourself, like for instance, when I sit with my clients, because we do this deeper work, and when I invite them to stay a little longer with something that they might notice, and then they go to their head and talk about it or move away from it, then I can guide them back and say, well, let's see if we can stay here longer and see what that is. And then when they are able to do that, then there is some huge openings that can happen. I mean, I see it a lot. It's like, oh. And then you can see that you have been identified with something that you wanted to hide, let's say, or something you didn't know what to do with. So there's all these parts that we have suppressed down into our unconscious. And that is what lives our life. That becomes a worldview where we believe it should be like this or this shouldn't be like that. There's like this whole world view. That is how we see the world. And it's different for everybody. If you haven't noticed, that's why there's always wars and arguments and discussions and all kind of stuff, because our world views clash with other people's worldview. And when we find somebody that has a somewhat similar worldview, it's really nice to engage with them, right? It's like, oh, finally somebody gets me. But we're only getting each other's world view. So we're still identified with that. It's actually really nice for me to speak about it because every time I speak about something here, well, not every time, but often, I learn from this. Like, oh yeah, it helps me deepen, right? It's it's like allowing this to just be expressed. And then I learned from it too. So these worldviews are basically experiences that the separate sense of self has. They're not true. Nothing is true that is separated from our true self, from our divine expression, from our soul connection, our source connection. Only this is true. Everything else is just programming, made up things based on our past experiences, based on what other people say, based on what we have been programmed and indoctrinated with from childhood, based on the traumas, all that stuff. It's like we create a whole um, huge sense of self, and now we think we are that, and that's how we live our lives. So when we start dismantling that separate sense of self and just getting curious about it, really, there's nothing to dismantle other than just turning towards and say, oh, well, that's interesting. And then you have a choice if you want to keep feeling that, or if you want to turn around all the way back to your true self and start asking your question, well, who am I then? What am I then? Right? If I'm not who I think I am, if I'm answering the question like, who do you think you are? It's like, well, let me think. I think I am. I think. But the real question is, of course, who am I? Who am I? And that question cannot be answered from up here. It can only be answered by going into the sensation and the experience of when you say I, and then you are quiet so that I, that is here all the time, you say I all day long, right? But you're never questioning, well, who is this I? What is this I? This sensation that says I all the time. So now we want to open up to that experience, and that can only happen from deep within, where we get silent and quiet enough for I to reveal itself. And you notice I got a nice deep breath right away. That's how it often happens for me when I consciously go there. There's like, it's like, oh, oh, thank God. Thank God. But it comes again, it's different for everyone. It can be that there is like that sensation of relaxation or relief or whatever, because you touch in on something true, something real, not something you need to become or hide or pretend. It's because it's real. So we can start resting back easier there when we don't have all these stop signs like, no, I'm this, no, I'm this, I believe I'm this, no, no, no. So you get lost in all of this, and that never allows you to go back all the way to really find out, well, who am I then? What am I? And then we need to be quiet. And maybe sometimes for a long time, to really sink in deep enough so the I that you are, the I am presence that is you, so that can start expressing itself and that you can start feeling it or hearing it or sensing it. I do have, I think I have a meditation. I'll put the link here about I am, and I am meditation. And I invite you to check that out, to just move past that all these identities that you have created your worldview from and through, and then slowly start sinking in deeper. And then just be quiet and just be open and receptive.